The XPG Defender Pro is the latest in a number of cases that XPG has sent us to take a look at. Is this mid-tower E-ATX capable PC case worth your build and your money? Well, let's find out right now, right here on Robeytech. You know, I really do enjoy building and testing XPG cases because they're all about the experience of the build. They ensure that I can use as many of their components as absolutely possible when I do these builds, and the resulting oohs and ahs when I finish at the end of the stream is always, you know, really just satisfying. So when they sent me the XPG Defender, I knew that again, we would be basking in the glow of RGB glory because they have RGB everything. But alas, because this is a medieval themed rig, okay, not really, but I still wanted to use the word alas. So let's talk about the XPG Defender Pro mid-tower case. It's interesting. I've seen this trend popping up now and again in cases that actually say they support E-ATX motherboards, like this one for reals does, because you can actually route the cable. This case is actually capable of installing and routing cables for an E-ATX motherboard. This is the more standout feature of the case, and the fact that it also includes a magnetic front panel that is lit by ARGB strips, by the way, meaning faster airflow performance, of course. Okay, not really. But it does give you easy access to the fans and dust filter and has some pretty hefty holes in it that should make the airflow for this case quite good. This case comes in both a black and a white variant, and at the time of recording was clocking in at a reasonable $109.99 on Newegg.com. Now, stock, the case comes with three 120mm fans, two in the front and one in the back, and is also rocking a 3mm tempered glass side panel and supports both a horizontal and vertical GPU installation. Though the vertical GPU is super close to the glass, so not something I would necessarily recommend. Front panel support is somewhat lacking, with two USB 3, a combo microphone headphone jack, and an LED button. The lack of a USB-C is surprising at this price point, and it's worth noting if that's somewhat important to you. All in all, nothing too crazy in terms of standout features, sans the fact that it does support E-ATX in a mid-tower case, and you have a magnetic front panel versus something that you swear you're gonna break as you're trying to rip it off for the first time. So let's talk about what you can cram into the XPG Defender if you were wanting to do a build in this case. First off, for motherboards, you have mini ITX, micro ATX, ATX, and E-ATX motherboard options here. Though I don't know why you would use this case with a mini ITX or micro ATX. It's kind of beyond me. Covering clearances here, you got a CPU cooler height limitation of 170mm, so big coolers like the Master Air MA620M will fit. For GPU lengths, you can do up to 380mm, so pretty much anything just about. And for PSU length, you're talking about 220mm, though without a removable drive tray, some of those 200+mm PSUs are still gonna feel pretty tight. For fan support, you can do up to three 120mm in the front or two 140mm. For the top, you can do either two 120mm or two 140mm, and for the rear, you're looking at a single 120mm. For radiator support or AIO, interchangeable here, on the front you can do a 240, 280, or 360mm radiator or AIO. On the top you got 280mm, and really, yes, you can. Lots of room up top for this. You really can do a 280mm AIO or 240mm. Zero issues whatsoever. For storage, you can also do a total of four 2.5-inch SSDs, two in the drive tray, or you can do two 3.5-inch HDDs, popping those in the drive tray instead. Now, it is worth noting before we jump into the build that we don't have any nice cable management features like pre-installed Velcro strips or paths for your cables, like in other cases like the Corsair 5000D. You do have some strategically placed tie downs, but beyond that, not much else. Okay, enough about what we can do in the case. Let's actually do something and get a build inside of it. CPU we're gonna be using is the i7-11700K. The other thing we're going to be checking out as well is the NZXT Z590. We're going to be using their XPG Spectrix D50. For our cooling, we're going to be using the Levante 240. We're going to be using the XPG RGB, because why not? More RGB means more awesome. We're going to put a Zotac card in here. This is the Zotac Gaming GeForce RTX 3070 Ti. We got this from Team T-Force. This is their Carter Ceramic PCIe Gen 4x4. Okay, so there's all of our parts. Let's go ahead and get started on the build. What do you guys say? Pop this on. There it is, just like that. Pop this in, see if that fits. Yeah, it'll fit pretty nicely. Oh my gosh, that was loud. Okay, so we're gonna pop this on. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put these little pegs in here. So this is the XPG Defender Pro. So I'm gonna take this off. This front is magnetic, so you just gotta push it, and then it pops right off. Just gonna see if this will just fit right here, and then we'll throw another fan in the back here. Okay, it's the same size. Let's actually get our motherboard inside the case. Look at that. Look how clean that's gonna look. Next up, let's go ahead and get our AIO mounted and all that kind of stuff. Ugh. Now I can turn it over and let's get this all cleaned up, which is a mess. GPU time. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and go to PSU time. It is all done. There we go. That is in. That is in. That is in. Boom and boom. Hey, look at that. Well, there you go, RGB overload for your entertainment. Well, now that we have something built in the case, what did I think? To be honest, I had to go back and watch the build a couple times post the stream to kind of remember. Now, maybe I'll do a better job and write these right afterwards from now on, but I mean, I didn't really have any issues with the case. It wasn't terribly hard to build in, and there wasn't any challenge to make the build look good in the case. The rubber grommets helped, and also the fact that you had that cutout at the bottom, albeit small, for the GPU cables really did help make it look polished. The tie downs in the back were sufficient for doing a good spine method for cable management, and getting your standard ATX component in this case was pretty easy. I will say that I really did like the option of top mounting an AIO. Even if you had an AIO with some bigger fans, you aren't gonna have any clearance issues with this case, as it kind of has like a top hat that makes the AIO fit comfortably. That was super cool. Thank you, XPG. It also helps ensure that there's plenty of room to access all of those connections at the top of your motherboard. And as a builder, I really do appreciate this. It's nice to have room and not have to worry about needing to pre-wire your EPS CPU connectors or hook up your top fans or RGB before your AIO, which, to be honest, most people basically install their AIO and then do these things in that order. It's pretty much every build guide on YouTube. So for the build experience, I really kind of give this like a B+. I mean, it passes, and the AIO installation and easily taking apart the case make it a good building experience. However, cable management options were lackluster. The GPU cable hole, though nice, was a bit small. The inability to move the drive tray was kind of lame. It doesn't take the grade down per se, but it keeps it from being exceptional. Now, let's talk about thermals. So for thermals in our XPG Defender in a slightly positive pressure configuration using the included XPG Vento ARGB fans, and one more Lian Li as well because I needed to have that. My OCD was going nuts. So for the CPU using the XPG Levante 240 to cool the Intel 11th Gen 11700K, we saw an idle temperature of 31 degrees in our open case scenario, and when we closed the case up, we saw a 7-degree difference jumping to about 38 in the closed case scenario. We load things up and we start putting that proverbial pedal to the metal. We saw things become a bit more toasty, but nothing crazy. 73 degrees when under load in the open case, and staying on trend with a 7-degree jump to 80 in the closed case scenario. So what about our Zotac 3070 Ti? How did the GPU fare in the case, sweating things out? Well, not too bad actually. In the open case scenario, when idle, the Zotac 3070 Ti was sitting at a nice and comfortable 35 degrees with only a 1 degree difference of 36 when we closed everything out. And likely, that's how you're going to use it in the real world. Now, when rendering scenes of the latest Robeytech merch, which you can check out now at robeytechdeals.com/merch, by the way, we are putting the GPU under load. We again saw things were well under control, with the GPU sitting at 70 degrees under load in the open case scenario, and only a 5 degree difference of 75 when closing the case up. So what does this all mean? Well, what it means is functionally, the case is fine. It does a good job of getting airflow to the AIO and to the GPU, and even when the case is under load, both cooling solutions got what they needed to keep things moderate. So no issues at all with how this case performs thermally. Okay, so let's drill down on the build we actually used in the case and how it did when putting it through our gauntlets of games. First up, let's talk about single-player RTX experiences, given this is an NVIDIA GPU paired with an Intel 11th Gen 11700K and a Zotac AMP Holo 3070 Ti. For Tomb Raider running at 1440p with DLSS on the highest preset, we saw an average frame rate of 146 FPS across the runs we did in our game. For Metro Exodus, also running at 1440p, running with ray tracing on and high and DLSS set to balance, we saw an average frame rate of about 74.65. That's not about, it literally is 74, but hey, let's go with about. What about MP? Well, for Apex Legends, running on low visual settings, again, optimizing at 1440p for competitive gameplay, we saw an average frame rate of 272.7 FPS. That is no slouch right there. That is great for gaming. For Call of Duty Warzone, again, low visual settings, 1440p, set for competitive, we saw 188 FPS. Take that. Finally, for Fortnite, again at 1440p, because you gotta be competitive, this absolutely crushed that 360 FPS barrier, coming in at a nice and fluid 392 FPS. I mean, that's just your eyes bleeding. That is just so smooth. Let's just wrap it up. The XPG Defender is a good case, and it's a great option if you're looking for an E-ATX solution in a mid-tower chassis. It does everything well, but it's nothing remarkable. It's not a standout, but it does provide a good solution for a small niche that is actually pretty hard to find. If you like the visuals in the case, and heck, then go for it. It definitely has some areas of improvement, but nothing that would keep me from recommending it to someone if they asked, "Hey Robey, should I get this case?" Yes, if that's what you want. So that's it. But better yet, after all that, what did you think about the XPG Defender? Did you like our RGB overlord or overload build? And was there anything in the performance or thermals that surprised you? I'd love to know all of that down in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so you get a notification each and every time we post a new video here on Robeytech. Guess what? They're happening way more frequently. The other thing too is we now have a live show every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday starting at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. You can also check us out on Amazon Live on Saturdays starting at 1 p.m. as well. We also have an absolutely incredible Discord community over at discord.gg/Robeytech, where we talk about builds. You can get answers to all sorts of questions. Anything that you basically want to know about tech, we answer there. And there's over 14,000 people there, which is absolutely awesome. You can also check out our new site, robeytechdeals.com, and our new merch, which just went live at robeytechdeals.com/merch. Anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We'd love to follow and see you more on our socials. You can follow us on all of them over at Robeytech. But outside of that, we will see you on the next video.